All right, welcome back, Pokemon fans, to the finals of the Independence, Missouri Premier Challenge. Is going to be between Leonard Kraft the Third, known as DaWoblefet online, versus Ricky Green. Leonard is currently sitting at 229 championship points, trying to put himself in range to earn his world's invite at the U.S. National Championships. So 30 points out of this could do him a great deal. Ricky, on the other hand, is sitting at 92 points. An extra 30 obviously doesn't hurt, puts him in range for a decent showing at a couple of regionals. If he goes to Madison, as well as, a strong run at the North American International Championships, puts him in a strong position to qualify as well. So this is going to be a really exciting match. Super pumped. We saw Leonard's team earlier on stream with a very bulky Lugia. Really excited to see how this team handles a best of three, when your opponent has a little bit more time to adjust to what it is you're doing, as opposed to trying to just catch them off guard with something a little unexpected. So here we go in team preview. On the left, you have Leonard's team, which consists of Lugia, Metagross, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Salamence, and Yveltal. On the right, you have Ricky's team, which is Xerneas, Rayquaza, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Tapu, Fini, and Nihilego. So Xerneas here really likes facing off against Yveltal and Salamence. It's like, oh, just let me boost up and start sweeping things. That's all I want to do. Meanwhile, Rayquaza, of course, can bop this Amoonguss. And I think the biggest thing that Ricky really has going for him, though, is if this Toxic Stall Lugia, can't get its feet off the ground, right? It can't Toxic and Amoonguss. It can't Toxic the Nihilego. And it can't Toxic anything except for Rayquaza, as long as Misty Terrain is active. So that's something that, Leonard might have to use a different strategy that his team has, depending on how Ricky positions himself. Leonard may not be able to play this Toxic Stall game. He may be forced to play more offensively. But of course, Metagross, is going to be very strong against several of Ricky's Pokemon. It's going to resist that Rayquaza, and of course Metagross has a huge defense anyways, that it's going to be very strong against this Rayquaza. But Rayquaza, of course, we have seen Swords Dance from it in one of Ricky's previous matches, so maybe we see Ricky kind of turn things around, just boost up and KO it anyways, like your defense is, or that you resist my attacks when I'm a Rayquaza with 160 base attack and I'm at +4, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. So we do see going ahead and leading with Rayquaza and Incineroar. So this is actually a pretty solid lead, because he's got this fake out potential, or he could go for a fake out, buy himself a free turn to set up a Swords Dance on his Rayquaza and get in position to deal a ton of damage. Of course, threatened by getting hit with a Toxic right away, as well as a potential Ice Punch from a Mega Metagross, which is going to deal a ton of damage. Or even just an Iron Head. Maybe you don't need the maybe you just go for 2-hit KOs. And also importantly here, Metagross in its base form does have the ability Clear Body, which is going to prevent that Intimidate from lowering its attack. So we do see Leonard going ahead and switching out his Metagross, like, you know what, I'm going to save you for later, bringing in his own Incineroar, which is going to drop an Intimidate on that Rayquaza, kind of preemptively getting ready for, is this thing going to try and Swords Dance on me? If it is, I want to mitigate that as much as I can. So we dropped one Intimidate here, as we do see Incineroar going for the fake out into what was the Metagross slot, is now the Incineroar slot. So that does buy Leonard a turn at least with his Lugia. However, we did see this Rayquaza setting up a Swords Dance, so it's now going to be boosted, and it has not been hit with Toxic, you know, so it's not on a timer just yet. Leonard instead choosing to target the Incineroar, feeling like that was the more pressing thing to get a Toxic down on. Potentially thinking is like, oh, I can Toxic Rayquaza later. Want to get a Toxic onto it before it gets a chance to, you know, be under Misty Terrain, if that's something that Ricky brought. So we do see Rayquaza going for a Protect, you know, blocking this Fake Out turn. As the Fake Out does go into that Protect, and we see a Calm Mind coming out from Lugia, so that is going to raise its special defense, which will help it out against this Nihilego, you know, if Nihilego's firing attacks into it, but is not going to do anything to slow down these attacks coming out from Rayquaza. One thing of note that is, you know, playing into is the strong winds that Mega Rayquaza's Delta Stream ability activates are also going to protect Lugia from super effective Rock-type attacks, which will lessen the amount of damage that Nihilego is able to do to it. Or the main threat to Lugia right now is this boosting, especially so we do see Rayquaza actually just going for another Swords Dance. Like, who needs to attack when you can just get boosted up to you know, +4, like I was saying earlier. So we do see the Clear Smog come out from Nihilego into Lugia, you know, removing its Clear Smog, or its Calm Mind boost, so reducing that damage that Lugia could have done with the Aeroblast into Rayquaza. Importantly, we did see that it broke the Focus Sash that we saw at the end of Game 2 in Ricky's last match, that could open up Rayquaza to get KO'd by Metagross at a later point, if Metagross can survive the boosted attacks that Rayquaza can fire off. You know, as Rayquaza is boosting up more and more, it's going to be dealing a lot of damage. So we do see Rayquaza, it's got 2 Swords Dances, it's been intimidated twice, so right now it's sitting at just +2. But that's still more than enough power for Rayquaza to fire off some very strong attacks. So we do see Rayquaza protecting itself for now as Sludge Bomb connects from Nihilego into Lugia. So the important thing here is that that will have broken Lugia's meaning it won't take reduced damage, which does give Rayquaza a chance to hit it with a boosted and however, we did just see Rayquaza protect, meaning it's sort of a sitting duck for an Intimidate plus, or for a Fake Out plus Toxic play, which could definitely play into into Leonard's advantage. Goodness, I'm sorry. It has been a long day of Pokemoning. I'm getting my people mixed up. So we do see the Fake Out into Rayquaza. That's going to prevent it from moving this turn, as Nihilego goes for the Continental Crush into the Incineroar, and so that's likely going to pick up a KO here. It's going to be a ton of damage coming out from that Nihilego. So that does pick up the KO on Incineroar, so no more dates will be coming out here, as Toxic does come out from Lugia into Rayquaza. So Nihilego has boosted itself to +1 by picking up a KO, which is definitely something that Leonard's going to want to watch out for. And this Rayquaza, while it's at +2, it is Toxic Poisoned, so it is going to be on a little bit of a timer. It's not going to be able to just stick around forever. So if Ricky continues trying to play it defensively with this Rayquaza, you know, he does risk getting knocked out eventually. Also of note, on that turn of Leftovers Recovery, Lugia has restored itself to full HP, so it will be able to have use of its multi-scale ability, which is definitely going to help out from taking an attack from this Rayquaza. So Metagross does hit the field. A Mega Metagross will be able to outspeed that Nihilego and hit it with a super effective Steel type attack, you know, to pick up a KO, kind of clear the way from those boosts, you know, no longer a big deal. But Metagross is going to have to take, potentially take a hit from a boosted Rayquaza. We have seen some Rayquazas running Crunch. A +2 Crunch is going to deal a big chunk of damage to Metagross. No switches coming out on this turn. Metagross going ahead and Mega Evolving, removing the Clear Body ability and replacing it with Tough Claws. So if Incineroar comes back in, the Intimidate will be effective there. As we do see Nihilego protecting itself on this turn as Dragon Ascent comes from Rayquaza, looks like into the Lugia slot. So this is hitting Lugia's ability, but it's still going to deal a ton of damage. That's 40% damage right there as Metagross goes for a Stomping Tantrum into what Nihilego's Protect. And so that's really important because that is a failed Stomping Tantrum, which means on this next turn, Stomping Tantrum will have double damage coming out into whichever target to attack with it. Of course, if this Incineroar does choose to fake out the Metagross, that's reset, no big deal. It's definitely something that Ricky is going to have to be cognizant of. So now that Rayquaza has been knocked out, the strong winds are no longer active, meaning that Lugia is no longer protected from super effective rock-type attacks, which puts that +1 Nihilego in a very, very good position to deal a lot of damage. So Leonard, recognizing that, wants to switch out his Lugia in favor of Amoonguss, because Amoonguss will be able to take this Power Gem a little bit better than an unboosted Amoonguss is able to take that Power Gem quite a bit better than Lugia would have been, especially given that there is no multi-scale in effect and no winds to protect the Lugia. So good call from Leonard there. He did take a chunk of damage, puts his Amoonguss in range of the opposing Incineroar. Yeah, I think he's okay with that trade in order to preserve his Lugia for a little bit later in this match. So one thing here, the Incineroar has been toxic poisoned, so it will be slowly, whittling away its health, but it's going to be interesting to see if it is able to KO this Incineroar before, it's able to do enough damage. So we do see Xerneas coming out as switches out his Amoonguss for Lugia, so that is going to let his Amoonguss, regenerate some HP with the Regenerator ability, putting it back in a better position for later, as this Flare Blitz connects with Lugia and, gets a little bit of damage down on it. And this is going to put Xerneas is in a little bit of a precarious position. It can't just freely boost in front of a Metagross. Super effective Tough Claws boosted Steel type attacks are going to deal a ton of damage to this Xerneas, so it's not in a safe place to boost. But of course, Ricky can protect Xerneas while he tries to deal with Metagross with his Incineroar. So he's definitely got some options here, and kind of has to play into that or not. First is being toxic, it's no longer got his berry available, and doesn't want to take those. Actually, I believe it was Meteor Mash. So I do like this move here by Ricky, sacrificing his Nihilego, being like, yep, Nihilego's job is done. What I want is to be able to have both Fake Out and Geomancy available on the same turn. So by protecting his Xerneas there, he gets an Intimidate down on the super important, as well as, now he's got the opportunity to go for a Fake Out plus Geomancy to kind of try and get his Xerneas in position to overwhelm Leonard's Pokemon. You know, yes, Metagross is bulky. Yes, it resists Fairy-type attacks. Does that matter, you know, when he's dealing enough damage over time? Maybe not. However, like with both Metagross and Amoonguss available, it is going to be tough for that before Incineroar goes down to a combination of toxic damage, the attacks that and Flare Blitz recoil. So important to note here is that Amoonguss is in the back. So if this Incineroar goes down, if Xerneas gets toxic I don't know how to say that properly. You know, Amoonguss could play the long game versus Xerneas with bulking it out and, you know, utilizing potentially a Clear Smog to clear the boost off or whatever. So we do see Xerneas has boosted. The critical hit from Incineroar likely playing a part in that KO, as it does as very high defense. So we do see that Lugia is now back to full HP, so it does have multi-scale active, meaning it will take a Dazzling Gleam or a Moonblast from Xerneas quite a bit better. Incineroar surviving that toxic turn with just a sliver of HP is really, really huge, as it does give option to Flare Blitz the Amoonguss. However, Leonard sees that and goes ahead and goes for the Aeroblast into the Incineroar, finishing it off before it can attack the Amoonguss. Amoonguss hitting that Clear Smog into Xerneas, that's a really big deal. It deals a little bit of chip damage, but more importantly, it removes the boost, which is going to make it quite a bit easier for Lugia and Amoonguss to stall out this game. So Xerneas actually going for a second Geomancy, you know, wondering, hey, is there a way I can get a cheesy second boost in order to clear up the game? I don't think that's going to work out very well, considering that Amoonguss can just Clear Smog it again, since this is now a 2-turn attack. Amoonguss will be able to Clear Smog it on this following turn and just completely negate the boost as they happen before Xerneas can utilize them at all. So really well played here by Leonard. Had a little bit of a dicey spot, you know, as that Rayquaza was boosting itself, but was able to play around it, you know, not take too much damage from those things to get himself in a position where he's able to lock this Xerneas down. So Xerneas has boosted again. We did see it take 2 turns instead of 1 because it's already consumed its Power Herb, but it looks like Amoonguss, you know, hitting this Clear Smog here, clearing those boosts away right away. So now with that Toxic, Xerneas only has a couple more turns, even if Leonard isn't attacking it, and obviously we are seeing him go for these Clear Smogs into the Xerneas and Aeroblast. You know, those combinations are dealing enough damage. We should be seeing, yep. He saw that as well. Didn't want to waste his time watching that Toxic turn damage one more time. Is deciding to go ahead. You know, it's like, all right, I've lost one game. How do I turn it around? He definitely had a game plan, but Leonard was just able to outmaneuver him just a little bit by taking care of that Rayquaza before it was able to deal too much damage. Rayquaza was trying to boost to get around the Intimidates. Maybe got a little bit too greedy when he should have been dealing damage instead of boosting. Hard to say. So we'll see if he recognizes that and adjusts his play style just a little bit, you know, to kind of eke out the edge. The other thing I wonder is, now that Ricky has seen that Leonard's team, rather than dealing direct damage, utilizes damage over time, I do wonder if he's going to, maybe consider using Tapu Fini as a way to protect the Xerneas. Obviously, he did bring both Amoonguss and... He didn't bring Amoonguss, disregard. He did bring the Nihilego, which is immune to Toxic. So I wonder if we'll see Ricky, kind of utilizing a little bit of a different mode, using different Pokemon in order to play around that Toxic damage rather than direct damage, now that he knows that that's what's coming. Alright, so now that both players have decided how they're going to approach this matchup, they have decided to do and get into Game 2. Leonard leading the set right now, 1-0. Ricky needs a win in order to force a Game 3 if he has adjusted. And we do see Tapu Fini, so likely a direct answer, like, alright, really kind of pinned due to Toxic damage over time. That dealt probably half of the damage that was dealt in that game, right? So how can I prevent that? Misty Terrain will prevent that from being an issue. So we do see the Tapu Fini straight away, and it's accompanied by Incineroar. So neither of these Pokemon can be Toxic, which definitely changes the way that Leonard has to play this game. We do see the Amoonguss cannot spore either of these targets and is going to take big damage from Incineroar. So both of those things are things that Amoonguss doesn't want to deal with, right? Not being able to spore and being threatened by super effective attacks. Leonard also recognizes that and is like, yep, let's get the heck out of here. I don't want that for my Amoonguss right now. I want to save it for later. So we see Amoonguss switching out into Incineroar, getting a Intimidate down on both of these Pokemon, as Lugia goes for a Calm Mind. That is going to boost its special defense, which could be big here, as Icy Wind comes out from Tapu Fini. That's going to slow down the Lugia, which is definitely going to be important. And also, it broke the... excuse me. It broke the ability that Lugia has. So that's going to leave... Lugia is currently in a position where it's taking full damage from attacks, unless it can recover enough health from either leftovers or recover. So we do see field here. It is threatening Fake Out. Lugia took a Snarl, so it is at neutral special attack and only +1 special defense. Something that for him, but it's going to struggle as far as dealing damage goes right now. So we do see Light Screen coming out from Tapu Fini. This is going to be big, as it is going to help protect Xerneas from Lugia is trying to fire off. Lugia, not caring, just going to continually boost rather than going to attack, as Snarl comes out from Leonard's Incineroar, and that's going to weaken the Xerneas. Even if Xerneas boost, it's still dealing with being at only +1 rather than +2. This gives Incineroar, a chance to continue spreading Snarls. It's going to help Lugia continue to boost on it. So there's a lot that has going for him, and I think Ricky sees that. He doesn't want to boost right now, as he goes for a Haze on his Tapu Fini, so that's clearing that Lugia had previously as well. So Lugia is now going to be at full speed which will be important as a Snarl comes out from Incineroar after the haze happened, so that's still going to affect the Xerneas. So cleared some of the boost, but Lugia went ahead and boosted up a second time anyways, and now it's no longer slower. So it does have the opportunity to fire off a +1 Arrow Blast at this point, before potentially getting hazed again. We'll see what it is that Ricky chooses to go for here. Do see Leonard switching out his Incineroar, his Incineroar in a Metagross, as Xerneas goes for the Geomancy. So that's a good turn for, in my opinion, right? Because if an Icy Wind comes out here, Metagross is unaffected by it. Haze comes out here, Ricky hazes his own boost on Xerneas. So it was like, I need to clear these boosts that Lugia is having. He also just cleared his own boost on Xerneas. So Xerneas is unboosted now, making it quite a bit less threatening. So now that Metagross is on the field, it threatens that Xerneas, with a Meteor Mash, as we saw previously. And, Xerneas can't boost itself, so it's still going to be more of a sitting duck, so to speak. Xerneas is still powerful, it still has a high special attack and still boosts itself, but it's not nearly as dangerous since it has not Geomancied. So we do see Leonard choosing to not Mega Evolve, and I really like that play because it prevents his Metagross from losing any speed on this turn, thanks to its clear body ability. Now 5 turns have elapsed and Misty Terrain is no longer active, meaning that Toxic is, it's back on the playing field. Pokemon can be Toxics now as long as they are not Poison type. So now we're kind of back in, now Leonard is kind of back where he wants to be. So we do see Xerneas switching out, does not want to take a Meteor Mash from Metagross, as now Metagross goes for that Mega Evolution, going to boost its attack, give it the ability Tough Claws, be able to deal more damage now. So we do see the Meteor Mash connect with the Incineroar as Scald comes out from the Tapu Fini. So interesting choice, not showing Scald until after Terrain had expired, and Scald now has a chance to burn. I play by find that play by Ricky at all. He's like, I'm going to hide Scald until it can actually do some work for me. Going for the Scald into Metagross, fishing for a burn. Good play. RNG wasn't in his favor right now, but 30% chance. You got to go for it sometimes. And Tapu Fini has now been Toxic, so Tapu Fini is now on that poison timer a little bit, which is just interesting because most of the time when Tapu Fini is on the field, Terrain is also in effect. So this is sort of a long game. Leonard's playing the long game here, kind of trying to slowly wear down his targets. So we do see that Metagross goes for Protect here, as Tapu Fini goes for a Scald, not into the Protect though, instead into the Lugia ability for Incineroar to deal full damage, with a Dark type attack here. As Incineroar goes for the Flare Blitz into the Metagross rather than the Lugia. Ricky trying to, maybe he wants the burn just to get some damage over time onto Lugia, that way it kind of neutralizes that leftovers recovery that keeps putting it back to full HP after taking an attack from Tapu Fini. Definitely something that, is worth keeping an eye on. So Metagross switches out here into Incineroar. That's going to be an Intimidate down onto Ricky's Incineroar, as that's Leonard's Incineroar is going to take the Flare Blitz from quite a bit better than Metagross would. So it's sort of a double whammy there, as Incineroar takes very little damage on this turn. Well, it's very little damage. So we do see the Berry activate after recoil damage, as well as Leonard's Incineroar eating its own berry, bringing them both back up, to HP. However, both of Pokemon are taking some burn damage after, or excuse me, some toxic damage, after the turn. So both of these Pokemon, they're in precarious positions. They don't have that much longer left on the field before getting KO'd due to poison. And Leonard is doing a good job of keeping himself in an advantageous position. He's boosting his special defense. He's getting Intimidates out. He's got Fake Out pressure, which is going to force another turn of just toxic damage over time. So he's got all of that going in his favor, as Ricky goes ahead, switches out his Incineroar into Rayquaza. So Rayquaza's out here again. If it's able to play itself differently than it did before, as Aeroblast on a critical hit into that Rayquaza, puts it at fairly low HP. It's in range for another, if it gets hit by another Aeroblast, that's it for Rayquaza here, as the toxic damage brings Tapu Fini down to less than 25%, causing it to eat its berry and come back up to full HP. But the important thing here, with toxic rather than normal poison, the damage increases each turn that the Pokemon's on the field. So you can't just continually out-heal. Eventually the toxic damage is going to be more than you can heal in a single turn, even with moves like Recover. So despite Tapu Fini, getting a bunch of HP back, it's still in a precarious position where if it sits there for too much longer, it's going to go down. So we do see Rayquaza attack into the Incineroar, so that does get a KO on Leonard's Incineroar, which I actually believe is the first KO this game, if I'm not mistaken. Goes into the Lugia, but does not get a burn there, and another Aeroblast does pick up the KO on Rayquaza. So this puts Leonard in an interesting position. He's got Tapu Fini and Incineroar on Ricky's side of the field poisoned, so their HP is just slowly ticking away without him having to do anything. He just has to outlast. But Ricky also has that Xerneas remaining. However, Leonard does have his Metagross at about 60 or 70% HP. So it's going to be kind of tough for Ricky to maneuver around that Metagross, given that he has limited turns of Incineroar and Xerneas, or of Incineroar and Tapu Fini being around. But if Tapu Fini can get a burn onto Metagross to help protect his Xerneas, maybe Xerneas has enough here to do it. On to just Amoonguss in the back, and that's going to be threatened by Ricky's Incineroar, so he's got his work. Ricky, has his work cut out for him. He's got to remove this Metagross and be able to get enough damage on Lugia. It's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely doable. So we do see Fini switching out for Incineroar, getting an Intimidate down onto this Metagross, importantly, and also resetting Fake Out pressure. However, we see the Meteor Mash going into the Incineroar slot rather than the Xerneas slot. Deals some damage, brings Incineroar down lower. That way it's closer to getting knocked out by that toxic damage. We did see Toxic from Lugia into the Protecting Xerneas. Since Ricky has switched out his Tapu Fini, he does have the option to switch it back in to protect his Xerneas from a Toxic, which is what he does. So Tapu Fini coming in here, that is going to protect Xerneas from Toxic, as it does set the Misty Surge Misty Terrain, and Metagross goes for a Protect, doesn't want to take any damage right this turn. Xerneas Moonblast into Metagross's Protect as Aeroblast comes out from Lugia, was targeting the Tapu, or was targeting the Incineroar, which is switched to Tapu Fini. Unfortunately for Leonard, it misses there. So Misty Terrain is active for another 5 turns, meaning it's going to take him 5 turns if he wants to get a. He might have to opt for direct damage, but we'll see how this goes. The Metagross choosing to switch out Amoonguss. Amoonguss, of course, in a really strong position against these Pokemon at least. However, Incineroar coming in here does threaten Amoonguss quite a bit more than Tapu Fini or Xerneas do. The important part on that switch there is that it resets the Intimidate that Metagross had taken earlier, as Xerneas going for the 2-turn Geomancy again. We'll see if he's able to get it up in order to find a way out of this game. So Incineroar goes down to toxic damage there, and that's actually really important because it removes the ability for Ricky to go for a fake out in order to prevent the Clear Smog from coming out from Amoonguss. So Amoonguss now, Xerneas is locked into the 2-turn Geomancy, is pretty free to Clear Smog the Xerneas on the turn that it boosts itself. So we do see Xerneas getting up the Clear Smog, or getting up the Geomancy boost here. Took 2 turns to do it, but it's got the boost for now. However, Amoonguss likely is just going for the Clear Smog into Xerneas, going to remove those boosts and leave it, without anything. So we do see Tapu Fini avoiding another Aeroblast. Not the end of the world as far as Leonard's concerned. Tapu Fini is already on low HP and toxic. It's going to go down eventually. And we do see that Clear Smog into Xerneas, removing the boost that it has achieved. So, even without taking any damage, I want to say has 3 turns remaining on the field. And of course, it's potential target for an Aeroblast. So we do see into Lugia deals very little damage thanks to those Calm Mind special defense boosts, as Aeroblast comes out from Lugia into Tapu Fini, as well as Clear Smog from Amoonguss into Tapu Fini to pick up the KO. So now this is a tough spot for Xerneas to be in, because it doesn't have access to Geomancy. Even if he does manage to get the 2-turn up, Amoonguss is there to just freely Clear Smog it away. Has already boosted so much that it's taking very little damage. Not to mention Metagross is faster than Xerneas and threatens it with super effective Steel-type attacks. So it's tough to imagine a way for Ricky to get out of this one, as we do see the Moonblast gets a attack drop onto the Lugia, who goes for a Calm Mind, undoes that special attack drop. I think more importantly for Leonard, gets the special defense boost to help Lugia outlast this Xerneas. And Misty Terrain does go down here, meaning that Xerneas can be poisoned again. It can be hit with that toxic. But I don't think toxic is going to be necessary here. Metagross is staring at Xerneas thinking, oh man, I'm so hungry. I really want some venison right now. So Leonard going for the Stomping Tantrum into Lugia in order to deal 0 damage to Xerneas, as Lugia goes for another Calm Mind, boosting up its defenses further. At this point, Lugia, can hit this toxic, play the long game. If it's me, I'm just clicking attacks into Xerneas. So Leonard was trying to get a little fancy, show off his boosted attack by targeting his own Pokemon. I suppose he was anticipating a protect on the previous turn. You know, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's not bad mannersing his opponent. It just looks a little silly from my end, right? But by doing that, targeting his own flying type, that way Stomping Tantrum fails, you know, anticipating a protect on the next turn in order to get double damage on Stomping Tantrum on the next turn. It's a thing. I don't know. Low, so I can't see the your time remaining for both of these players. I'm really not sure what Leonard's going for. You know, he's got the opportunity to just at least put the game on a timer, more so than it is right now. And I'm not sure what his game plan is here. Like, I feel like he does have this game fairly well locked up, and is kind of putzing around in order to make it happen. So Lugia boosts up again as Xerneas protects itself. Goes for a Spore from Amoonguss into the Xerneas. He might be trying to fix for the Aeroblast. Is that the move? Just for flex purposes. It's hard to say. So Xerneas clicking Moonblast into Lugia, which doesn't currently have multi-scale active, but it doesn't matter. It's got so many special defense boost that it's able to take that with ease regardless. So special defense now up to +6 as Spore connects with Xerneas. So it's going to be taking a couple turns of sleep here. I suppose Lugia needs 2 more Calm Minds in order to get to +6 special attack in order for us to see how much this Aeroblast does, you know, to Xerneas at +6. Guaranteed to sleep this turn since it hasn't slept yet. That does buy a free turn for Leonard to do as he pleases, switching in Metagross here and going for another Calm Mind. You know, due to the special attack drops, I think there were 2 of them. So I think now is when Lugia is at +6, which is as high as you can go. But I haven't been like keeping tally on paper or anything, so I couldn't tell you 100%. So now we're gonna see Xerneas go for the Moonblast into what was the Metagross is now the Amoonguss. Amoonguss takes that very, very handily, and now this Aeroblast comes into Xerneas, and it cleanly picks up the KO. So there you have it. Leonard Kraft III is the Independence, Missouri Premier Challenge champion. That puts him up to 259 CP. So he is getting himself to where you know, his expected finishes at nationals will be enough to get him to the world's qualification. Congratulations, Leonard. Very well played with a team strategy we don't often see. Also, well played by Ricky to make it to the finals. It's been a long day of Pokemon. Thank you guys for tuning in. I've had a lot of fun. Maybe I'll catch you at our next tournament.